how much of yourself would you say goes into this novel? And perhaps as a follow-up for that, where and how do you draw that boundary between the self and the character?
I think it depends on the novel. Although I would say, as a general, I would say that a writer puts themselves into every single character in their novel. So there's an element of me in Miguel, however unbearable the thought of that is, but there must be. And there's an element of me in Lucy, which is very much more apparent to me. And in The Neighbour too. There was an element of me in an ancient Roman character who now would be considered trans. And I'm not an ancient Roman effeminate male, a conidas. So I think if we, as writers, it's important to become our characters. I was teaching character last week on the MA in creative writing, and I suggest to my students that they step into the skin of their character on a physical level, feel what it's like to move around in their body physically through the senses, but then also, how would it be to talk like them? What's their voice like? And how do they think? And what's their worldview? So what I was attempting to do in this novel, and I did end up role-playing Miguel in a speed dating scenario. So Miguel's this narcissistic, very narcissistic, self-centered, quite dangerous character. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but there are suggestions as we move through the novel that he could potentially be a murderer. I'm not going to let you know if he is or he isn't, because that's one of the intrigues of the novel. And so a friend of mine who was a stage director and was in a writers group I used to go to suggested, well, why don't you be Miguel and speed date with some other people here with who are in their characters too. And it was really quite enlightening. And as a result of that, I decided that I was going to write Miguel in as a first person voice. And there's only a few chapters of him. And it was a difficult character to write. But I think that Carl Jung is also mentioned in the novel, segments the psyche into 13 archetypes or 12 or 13 archetypes. And so the mother, the king, the archetypal murderer, the baddie. So here we've got the baddie, and so it's interesting to step into that character and walk around in their skin, and I think there's something within all of us that can connect to his ruthlessness, although we may, like him, want to push that into the shadows, along with all the pain and the trauma that has resulted in a character like that, because for sure abuse breeds abuse, and there's abuse in Miguel's background. In terms of my research for the novel, some of it did come from my own experience of childhood trauma, so this was a very difficult novel to write. Lucy's story is not my story, but I have drawn on my own experience in therapy sessions with my therapist, whose permission I asked if I could fictionalize him, and he was cool with that. Has gone into the novel. So it was quite a raw novel to write, and I think because I was very honest emotionally, although in terms of the story this is fiction, I really delved deep into the pain and the shame and those dark feelings of childhood abuse, and tried to feed those into the voice of Lucy. So quite a lot of me emotionally went into this book.